same discipline from Northwestern University. He's taught at Ohio State and over the past 4 decades at the University of Southern Maine in Portland. He's recently completed a biography of William H. Chaney, the probable biological father of Jack London, and is currently writing several articles that treat nativist street preaching in the mid-19th century United States. The colorful title of Professor Whitmore's talk today is Never the Twain Shall, or Indeed Did Meet, an Ellsworth, Maine tale of the insensible relationship of a father, the controversial itinerant astrologer William Chaney, and his son, the famous California author, Jack London.
In October of 1905, Jack London set out on what he called his first, last, and only lecture tour. And it all began late in 1904 when agents of the Slayton Lecture Bureau in Chicago, the leading organizers of national speaking tours for celebrated Americans, approached him, the nation's most popular author. Their promoters asked if he had ever considered going out on such a program. London said that he had not. First, he had no skills in that area. He was a writer and not a speaker. Second, he could earn more money writing bestsellers than he could gain taking up at present the new and uncertain occupation of public speaking. Third, he needed time to do his work, to complete his customary 1,000 words a day, typed and corrected, as he said, that were required to produce his novel, short stories, and articles, the output that had prompted the lecture bureau to approach him in the first place. The Slayton firm countered by saying that professional training was no requirement for success or appearance on the lecture platform. No, audiences wanted to see in person celebrities that they had read or heard about. There was a large population out there that wanted to see and hear Jack London. The Bureau's agents had observed him in occasional speaking appearances in the Bay Area and knew that he could engage the interest and attention of an audience. Furthermore, however famous London was, and however much publicity his popular literary works had generated, the Slaytons observed a professional man could always benefit from gaining additional public currency. And beyond the matter of fame lay the issue of the celebrity's image to his audience. As one of the firm's credos stated it, quote, "A man in the public eye must be more than a writer, artist, or statesman. He must be a platform success." Close quote. Fame and public respect came to the person who ventured beyond his particular field to bring himself and his message to the people directly. London was skeptical but continued to listen. The invitation came when major responsibilities and changes in his life were putting demands upon him, and he could use the money to help meet these increasing burdens. Over the next several months, negotiations continued, and finally London agreed late in January of 1905 to go out on the road from the Middle West to the East Coast in October of that year for a 4-month period, with a break in the middle for him to catch up with his professional duties. The lecture bureau would immediately set about developing promotional materials to attract and arrange desirable and profitable bookings that would ultimately produce perhaps 40 or more speaking days for the author to fulfill in major cities and universities. They would set up a schedule that would string together speaking sites close together in location and convenient dates that would not leave him out on the road with 4 or 5 days between engagements. In July of 1905, a letter came to London from Brunswick, Maine. The secretary of a women's literary and veteran group, the Saturday Club, reported that they had seen promotional materials for his lecture tour and wondered if he might be willing to come to their town to speak. Jack showed the inquiry to Charmian Kittredge, his fiancée, and she was excited about the invitation. Charmian's late father, Willard Kittredge, had been born in 1829 in Bar Harbor on the coast of Downeast, Maine. After the well-known discovery of gold in Colonel Sutter's fields in the Sacramento Valley in 1848, young Willard joined the ranks of the 49ers traveling to California. Through her father, Charmian, born in 1872, had developed a mail correspondence with relatives back in New England. Willard had died in 1886, but Charmian continued regular communication with her Downeast kinfolk, and indeed had spent 4 months with them in 1900 when she embarked on an extended one-year tour of the Northeast and of Europe. Charmian reminded Jack that he was going on his tour of the eastern United States in October of that year, 1905. The finalization of his divorce from Bessie Madern in London was expected to occur in the autumn of that year, and the couple had agreed that they would then marry, all of this while Jack was on the road. She wondered if he would be willing to interrupt the tour, to take a break by going with her up to Maine to see her distant kinfolk. Jack said he would look into that possibility. He forwarded the letter to the Slayton Electric firm in Chicago and asked if it would be possible to establish a New England date or two late in the year that would conclude the first half of his tour. The lecture bureau said they would investigate such a possible lecture site and soon reported a date had been scheduled with the Saturday Club in Brunswick for early December. On the road, accompanied by his omnipresent, efficient Korean manservant, Myung-hee, Jack boarded an eastbound train from Oakland in October of 1905 to begin his tour in Kansas City. About 35 or so lecture dates had been established by that time, with more to be scheduled. Without much preparation through the summer, London had developed 2 general formats for his presentations. One of them, that tended to be the dominant one, was entitled Experiences, and generally provided his commentary on the many aspects of his life and the stages through which he had passed. The other featured a few readings from some of his popular short stories. Newspaper reporters and residents from communities that he visited turned out in great numbers to attend the lectures of the 29-year-old celebrity. Gradually, London developed a comfortable style and flow to his presentations as he became more experienced. 2 events, however, caused considerable public controversy and negativity. Early in his trip, in one of his socialist lectures, the author was attacking the corporate leadership of a mining company involved in a heated labor dispute, and quoted one particularly arrogant and abrasive industry leader as declaring, "To hell with the Constitution," in response to the criticism that the Titan was receiving from observers who objected to his tactics. A commentator on the dispute garbled the account of the executive's words to convey the idea that it was London, rather than the company official who had made that provocative statement. In many newspaper editorials across the country, singled the author out as a radical no-good. Although London complained that he had not made any such extreme declaration, many people did not understand the derivation of the abusive reference, and London received a substantial drubbing in the nation's press. The other problem arose for London late in November. On the 18th, an Oakland judge delivered to the author's estranged wife, Bessie, a final divorce decree severing her ties to London. Jack immediately telegraphed Charmian, who had quietly traveled a month earlier to stay with an aunt in Iowa, while waiting for the legal judgment to take place so that she and Jack might marry. Arriving late on Sunday the 23rd at Union Station in Chicago, Charmian found her maid waiting. In a whirlwind search by the couple at that late weekend hour managed to obtain a license and to find an agreeable judge who would marry them at that Sunday night. A barrage of public notoriety descended upon the couple from newspapers across the country, crying scandal as their sudden and quick marriage that took place merely a few days after the husband had been divorced. A number of women's church and civic groups condemned the author, and several libraries withdrew his books from their shelves. The attacks on London rose just about the time the Middle Western phase of his lecture tour was completed. He and his bride stayed with their Iowa relatives for a week, and then on December 5th, they and the omnipresent Myung-hee took a train back to Chicago so that Jack could fulfill his last lecture engagement of the first half of his tour. His speaking date on Thursday, December 7th in Brunswick, Maine. Riding the overnight Lakeshore Limited to Boston, the party quickly obtained tickets in the hub for a post-Christmas honeymoon voyage to Jamaica. And then Jack purchased a sealskin cap and gloves to combat the cold in northern New England. The Londons then boarded a Boston and Maine Express on Wednesday that arrived 5 hours later in Brunswick. Where all previous 27 speaking engagements of his tour saw Jack London arrive at his lecture community, go to his hotel, be escorted to his speaking site, meet sponsors in a post-lecture reception, return to his hotel, and leave the following day. London stayed 3 full days in Brunswick. He delivered his frequently presented lecture, Experiences as Trail Conductor and Correspondent, with a reading from his works. Speaking at Memorial Hall on the Bowdoin College campus on Thursday evening, December 7th, to a packed house. But he and his bride also provided a diverse and enjoyable period of community tours, sightseeing visits, faculty and student meetings, and club receptions both in the community and in the college. So enjoyable was the Maine experience for the travel-weary couple that Jack declared to Bowdoin's celebrated president, William DeWitt Hyde, that if his college days were ever to return, he would enroll at Bowdoin. And in one of his later short stories, London would identify the chief character of a Bowdoin student and graduate, the fiendish protagonist Emil Gluck in London's science fiction short story, The Enemy of All the World. For her part, Charmian would write a warm letter of gratitude to one of her Brunswick hosts for the countless ways that the Londons had so cordially been treated. At 1:30 on Sunday afternoon, the 9th of December, the Londons and their youngie boarded the Maine Central Railroad Express for a 127-mile trip to Bangor, where they quickly transferred to the Mount Desert branch of the railroad on the late afternoon to take the 5 o'clock train an additional 30 miles to Ellsworth.